Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cam Talks. Today, I want to talk about how we can all painlessly quit our addictions. Now, before I get into the topic, I want to share a little backstory upon why this is so on my awareness at this moment. Earlier today, just like every Saturday morning, I was at the boardwalks, which is a weekly walk hosted by my girlfriend, beautiful girlfriend, Elle Beecher, that is an event where we walk about 5 miles in downtown Austin, where like minded, open hearted people from all over the city come together just to have great, insightful, meaningful conversations. And every walk has just been its own unique, incredible experience. And today was no exception. My topic for today was all about health and all about addictions. And right after speaking that topic to the group, a woman came up to me and we began talking about her sober journey and my sobriety journey over the past year. This woman had been sober for decades and told me how much alcohol deeply affected her life in the past. And I talked about how, for me, it was something that was a huge part of my college experience, was a huge part of the past 5 years of my life. But recently, I realized no longer served me and was able to painlessly quit. And that brought up a lot of questions for her. Like, wait, how are you able to transition out of it so easily? And she brought up a topic that I hadn't really thought about teaching or sharing on camera with others yet. But once you put on awareness, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to share this with anyone who's ready to hear it, ready to see it. And so our conversation was fantastic. And during my conversation with this woman, it started by me sharing that when I was about 19, I had thankfully a really amazing mentor who, when I was in the business realm, taught me so much about real estate. And he was a wealth of knowledge when it came to that, but also a wealth of knowledge when it just came to life. And he had been sober for decades and was leading AA circles once a week for quite a while. And him and I talked about human nature all the time. We talked about why people become addicted, how AA can help them get out of it, and basically the whole premise behind recovery and healing. And I was just so fascinated by it. And I always knew that one day my life would be helping people heal these addictions. And then, just as life always presents itself, it teaches you the lesson first so you can heal yourselves before you can heal others. Right around the time, thankfully, it was never something super, super extreme, but I had definitely addiction, I'd say, to weed. I was playing an abundance, way too much of video games, watching porn, and drinking, even though it may not be extreme in comparison to the average. It felt extreme to me. It felt like a significant imbalance. And yeah, at that point, I was left asking myself, is this really how I want to live going forward? And yeah, I had some pretty dark moments where I realized, oh my gosh, if I keep down this path, I'm not going to get where I want to go. I'm going to end up the opposite of that. And it took me to realize, wait, why am I actually wanting to pick up the joint, pick up the bottle, play video games for 12 hours a day, do these things, watch these? Why? What am I running away from? And I realized that the time when I was picking up the most coping mechanisms was the same time that I was most misaligned in my life. This was a time when I was, overworking, full time on top of school. I was hanging around a lot of negative people. I wasn't treating my body, probably wasn't giving the right nutrients, the right food to make sure it runs properly. And just as a whole, there was so much that felt misaligned. I was casually dating all the time with women that I knew I wouldn't ever want to have a long-term future with. It was just so much going on that made me want to escape my current reality and just pick up the bottle or whatever it may be. And it took me to get there and understand, oh my gosh, this is happening because I'm so imbalanced in all these areas of life that I just don't want to face the feelings that come with that imbalance. So I'm just going to sedate myself. I'm just going to numb myself. And that happened for a handful of years. And I know in comparison to others that have an entire lifetime of that, it may not be anything, but to me, it was everything. And I realized, do I need to go to these Alcoholics Anonymous for weed? Do I need to go to narcotics? And I'm like, those are incredible approaches and work for so many, but I feel like that's just not really my path. And so I took a step back and observed myself, observed my behavior, and watched every time I'd pick up the joint, every time I'd reach the video controller, the bottle. I'm like, wait, why am I doing this right now? What am I avoiding? And it was always after doing things, it just didn't feel right to me. Working in a career that didn't feel right. Hanging around people that didn't feel right. Just being in the wrong circumstances. And that misalignment in my life, I realized, oh, I'm just running from this. So what would happen if I incrementally begin to shift my day-to-day behavior so that I'm more aligned? And the more I did that, the more I started getting my health back on track, eating healthy, working out more consistently, the more I realized, like, hey, I'd rather be alone, I'd rather be single than hanging around negative people. The more I realized, oh my gosh, this career really is not meant for me. If I do this for the next 40 years, yes, I'll make a lot of money, potentially. Yes, I can do well financially, but man, it'll rob me of my soul, rob me of my creativity, rob me of so much that I have in here that only a small percentage of me is actually being able to be expressed through this. I realized my life feels so misaligned, so meaningless. This could be a great life for someone else, but it's not for me. And so as I began to realign myself, I noticed simultaneously the urge to pick up that vice lessened dramatically to the same incremental level of my alignment. And that was when a light bulb went off. I'm like, when I look around at other people, when I look at myself, the reason for all this behavior was to cope with a reality I did not like. So what if I do everything I can to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited for the day. I wake up in the morning and I have purpose, I have meaning. And the big one was I wake up in the morning and I have others to serve. And so now I've realized, even in my life now, the more responsibility, and responsibility, of course, is being the ability to respond, the more I increase my levels of responsibility that are aligned, where I build companies that I know are impactful for the world, that are leaving my life and the life of everyone it touches in a better position than where they were before. When my goal is to have a life that is full of balance, that is full of, yes, crushing in business and doing these things for the community, doing this, doing that, and also time to just go on a walk in nature, to just relax, to go play some basketball, to watch a movie with my girlfriend, whatever it may be. The more I calibrate my life in a way in which it's aligned, especially in the service of others, it's difficult for me to put a vice into that equation. I can't be going out drinking and staying up late till 3 a.m., blackout drunk, used to in college, whatever it used to be, knowing that I got payroll to make this month. I got people relying on me, the livelihoods relying on me. I'm not saying I'm going to add all this pressure to me, especially if it's misaligned, creating stuff that doesn't really exist, I don't really passionate about. I'm not going to do that if it's not aligned. But if it's aligned, I can then expand my ability to serve by creating the creations, the writing, the videos like this, the systems in place in the form of businesses to help people, the communities where people can connect. The more I do, the less it would ever make sense for me to do anything that would throw me off from that. And the more good energy I'm receiving from the clients, from the people that work with me, from my family, all those things, because I'm doing well, the less there is to escape from. And now, with my more aligned life, I would say almost fully aligned, there is no urge to run away. There's no urge to leave. And so, because of that alignment now, I was able to, over time, painlessly, with significantly less, if not any withdrawal symptoms, let go of everything that does not serve me. And so, other than putting all this effort in making sure my environment is perfect and there's never an alcohol bottle in sight, because if there's an alcohol bottle in the house, I'm going to drink it, without trying to make my environment perfect at all times, knowing that life just isn't that. You're not always going to have an environment that's going to be suitable so that you can live in this bubble. The more I realize that, I'm like, well, other than trying to go down that route, what if I just remove any feeling of needing to grab, whether it's the bottle or a bag of Oreos, depending on the addiction? What if I could have it all near me and just not have any emotional charge or energy being like, I need that? What if I get rid of that need? And that's just happened through me day by day, making the smallest incremental choices to become more aligned. And that's great when it comes to, building businesses that impact the world and creating things like this and having purpose. That's fantastic. Another part of that I realized in my own life, and especially with working with clients, because I had this and people noticed it within me and they wanted to learn from that. I had multiple clients that have a successful business or want to make the impact they want to make in the world. They're doing it very well, making great money. They have everything in life figured out. They got their health. Everything's good. Everything's really good. But for some reason, they're still feeling drawn to a certain type of, you want to call it sedative, addiction, coping mechanism, vice. And I realized through myself and through them that, oh my gosh, even though they may have everything they want, they aren't yet free from themselves. And what do I mean by that? There are things that have happened in our life, whether we did or that happened to us, that if we hold on to, creates shame, guilt, and resentment, anger, sadness. And sometimes that's towards another person, but oftentimes it's towards ourselves. And it's the same as the purpose alignment scale. The more shame, resentment, guilt is there, the harder it's going to feel to remove ourselves from the coping mechanisms. We need to cope with that reality of the shame and guilt and everything resentment that we feel. Whether, again, it's directed towards others or what they did to us or what we've done to others, the energy still stays the same in the body. And so as people would approach me for me to help them, I realized, oh, there's a conversation we're avoiding. And sometimes that's a conversation with ourselves to finally forgive ourselves. There's a plethora of different ways that I teach in my community and other things to help us get through to that point we can finally forgive ourselves and unconditionally love ourselves. That's a huge part of it. And also, oftentimes, a conversation may be needed with someone else to clear things up, to speak our truth for once, whether admitting to something we did or just showing them, hey, what happened when I was 8 or what happened last month really hurt me. Whatever that conversation is, it's the conversation we're avoiding that is feeding that addiction, that is feeding that coping mechanism. Nearly all time, it comes back to relationships. Oftentimes with probably the 5 most important people in your life, or have played the biggest impact, the biggest role in your life so far. And if we're not square with those people, if we're not aligned with those people, I'm not saying we're going to be best friends by any means, but we're going to speak our truth and learn to love and forgive them, learn to love ourselves. When we do that, that is when the vices begin to fall. I once had a client not that long ago that very, very successful man. Had all the boxes checked, like we talked about earlier. But there was a conversation with his wife that he'd been avoiding for quite a while. It was about him cheating. And this was weighing on him so incredibly hard, where he'd see his wife every day and not be able to muster the courage to say anything, to admit to her what happened. And it was eating at him alive. But oftentimes we're not conscious enough to realize why we feel incongruent internally. So it took a lot of questions, a lot of reflecting for us to get to the point where we understood, oh my gosh, there's some unsettled conversation, unsettled business with someone you deeply love that is weighing at you. And through a process of us learning how to have that conversation properly, to get us emotionally ready, the most important part, to have that conversation. Once that conversation was had, it felt like he got a monkey off his back, weight lifted off his shoulders. And no matter how that conversation went, because he finally spoke his truth, he was aligned with his intentions and actions. His need to smoke the weed, his need to drink was transcended painlessly. And so this is a different way of thinking than what we've been taught, as opposed to the AA model, which I think is fantastic, like I said before, and very grateful exists. But all of our imbalances in life through coping mechanisms are coming from an imbalance or misalignment in what we know we're capable of being. It's a misalignment from the highest version of ourselves. And so if we incrementally, not saying substantially change our life overnight, incrementally move ourselves in the right direction, to get all our ducks in a row, to get everything in order, to speak our truth, to vibrate at the highest level, which isn't love, which isn't peace, and those are very close. The highest level is authenticity. When we embody authenticity, that's when the game changes. And that's when our need to grab onto something external to fill the hole within dissipates. And I believe it is the only way forward. There has always been and will always be a million things to cope for, a million reasons to pick up the bottle or whatever your coping mechanism is. But there's only one way out. One way to truly transcend. And that is to speak and live your truth. To make the steps necessary, the actions necessary to reach full alignment. That's it. And then everything else we've been wanting, not only to drop the vices and get away from that stuff, but to run towards the happiness, peace, bliss, success, fulfillment that we all know we're capable of, we all dreamed of. That will also happen simultaneously when we align ourselves with authenticity. That's the other side. That we all know we're capable of, that we've all been yearning for. Many of us haven't had the people, the tools, the resources, or just the awareness that you receive in this video that it's possible. But this is the reason. And so I will be creating an immense amount of tools, including physical facilities in the next decade, to help people do this, to help people transcend whatever is not serving them. And that'll be in the form of courses. It already is coaching and retreats. But I will be spending a lot of my life as an intuitive healer to walk people through this process in a way that meets them where they're at and in a way that is sustainable for a lifetime. Because I hate to break it to you, but we're not supposed to suffer to the levels of which we are right now. That was not part of what we signed up for. The pain, most definitely. The amount of suffering that happens after that pain, now that's an option. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it is an option. And I know a big reason why I'm here is to guide others through that process when they're ready. So thank you for listening today. I'm so grateful for the conversation this woman brought to me earlier today on the walk. And just putting on my awareness that this conversation is necessary, that people are ready to hear this. And me understanding this, seeing the results in so many so far, and seeing how quickly others adopt this mindset. They take back full control, they take full responsibility for where they're at and fully align themselves. Seeing how it's spread just in my own little community from what I've talked about so far, I have so much faith and trust that we are going to make a world a better place by first getting ourselves in order, by aligning ourselves with our highest truth, the highest version of who we can be. And that can start today. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Take what serves you, leave what does not. I unconditionally love you. See you soon.